Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 18th session of the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates. Call this meeting to order, and we will open, as usual, with a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Thank you, and now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As usual, this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the internet and also periodically on cable. The clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews.
Here.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kakunis. Christopher Kanega. James Killian.
Here.
Marcia King.
Here.
Thomas Lynch.
Here.
Teresa Martin.
Here.
Deborah McCutcheon. Spiro Mitrokostas.
Here.
John Oman.
Yep.
Paul Pilcher.
Here.
Anthony Scalise. Julia Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, we have a quorum with 91.79% of the members present.
Thank you. I'll now need a motion to approve the calendar of business.
Motion to approve the calendar of business.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You should have received a copy of the Journal of May 4, 2011. Are there any additions or corrections to the Journal? If not, I need a motion to approve the Journal.
Move to approve the Journal of May 4th, 2011.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we have with us the Chair of the Board of Regional Commissioners. Welcome, Mr. Doherty.
It looks like a full house. Well, a cheerful good afternoon to one and all. Always a pleasure to come over. The main part of the business today was a briefing from Brenda Boland, long-serving and long-suffering chair of the Lyme Disease Task Force. We need to be reminded that Lyme disease is a particular problem here in the Cape, and that we are about to enter into the season for, which we're very concerned. So she was there with her TikTok and the other, other materials that she had. And there is a legislative committee meeting on Friday over at the Cape Cod Commission to talk a little bit about some of the legislative issues that she had brought up. But the most important thing that she mentioned was that they are looking for new members of her committee, and I'm using this opportunity to invite the public that might have an interest in the topic of Lyme disease to put their name forward. It would be our intention as county commissioners to put out a press release shortly to let's say, to give the public the process by which they could become members of the committee. But in the meantime, if people see this and are interested in it, please call the county, 508-375-6648. Express your interest, and we will take your names, and somebody will be in touch with you to find out how you could best be helpful. That was pretty much the business that was concluded, at our meeting. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for the county commissioners? Yeah, Leo.
Maybe just following up on your comments in regards to the Lyme disease situation. The county has hired a new, and I'm going to kill this word, is it entomologist?
Entomologist.
Thank you.
What was his name?
His duties
What was his name?
include, but are not limited to, the efforts that the county is doing on Lyme disease. And it may be prudent through you guys, for us to invite him here to meet us so we can go back to our respective towns and kind of update them on the programs that we are running in the county in regards to that.
I think that's a great idea, and I would just add one other thing that perhaps you might benefit from Brenda, Boylan also giving the presentation that she gave to us, although it will be part of the, our broadcast. Perhaps you would benefit from some of the information that she shared. I will look into that and talk to your secretary with regard to getting that scheduled.
Sheila, did you have something?
Well, I'm not sure what Commissioner Doherty did share about Brenda's visit with us, but, several years ago, there was a board that was a Lyme, that looked into Lyme disease, supported efforts in the legislature. It had physicians, nurses, public health officials. It was a real happening board when it came about, because it's what really drove the attention and legislative attention to the problem that we're having here. Now that problem is spreading, and that group, because it has been about 10 years old, that membership is either moving away, getting tired of serving on the board, or there's just too few of them. So we, right now, she was asking, they are going to be putting out a press release and a request that board is seeking membership. And that membership can be members of the public, but also members of public health, veterinarians. Anybody with that type of expertise and interest in this topic is welcome to contact the county, and they will put them in charge with Brenda, and she'll explain what that is. So that's also something you can already take back to your communities, because they are seeking membership to that very important committee. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anything else from the delegates? Quiet bunch. Well, I don't know if you're going to stay around for later discussions, or maybe a hasty retreat while you got the chance.
Well,
but
maybe we should. Are you giving us fair warning?
What's going on today? Is there something special? Something we hadn't heard of? Something?
Probably, Bill.
Oh, is this the approbation and approval of the wonderful, well-thought-out budget that we sent over?
Yes, I think we have something like that on there later on in the day. So I'm sure it will be treated with all the respect that it's due. All right. Well, thank you. Do we have any communications from public officials? Hearing none. Do we have any communications from members of the public? Okay, well, in that case, the Assembly will convene. And the first order of business is proposed ordinance 11-02 to make appropriations for Barnstable County's operating budget for fiscal year 2012. And I will then recognize the chairman of the Finance Committee, Mr. Ullman, for a report and a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After due diligence of the Finance Committee, and with some trepidation on the revenue side of the budget, the Finance Committee voted 3-1 to recommend the budget as presented to us in its entirety to the Assembly for debate and passage.
And are you moving that we do that?
So I'm going to make a motion to that effect, that I move to pass the 2012 fiscal year budget as presented to us.
Proposed ordinance 11-02.
And in the amount of $24,992,181.
Okay, thank you. And it's been moved and seconded. All right, further discussion. Leo?
Okay. Sorry.
I had the gavel ready, Leo,
I took the time in front of a computer, by the way, to write all this out, so I hope you guys appreciate it. I have handed out for your perusal a document that it's 2 pages long. It's labeled at the top, Motion to Amend the FY 212 budget. I'm not going to make this motion. I just want to explain it and find out if there's any support in either of the 2 options that I want to discuss. Option 1, basically, I have a problem with the anticipated revenues from the Registry of Deeds being elevated as high as $785,000 extra. Part of me wants to say, either try to educate me on why we think we're going to do that much better in revenue. I've attempted on my own to contact some people and talk with people, and I still haven't personally felt that that is a good projection. So option one is basically turning down the budget or the motion that has been made and sending back the budget to the county commissioners, asking them to revisit the specific area of the anticipated revenues and either level funding it and then reducing the budget in other areas, or coming back with some type of explanation that will satisfy the majority of the members of the assembly that that figure is good. Option two is basically my preemptive answer to, I was assuming that there would at least be one member here that would say, well, if you're going to reduce the revenues, then you have to do due diligence and reduce the expenditures. So option two, I went through the budget and came up with some recommendations that do in fact add up to the $741,660 in reduced revenues, with a subsequent $741,660 in reduced expenditures. If you want, I can go through each subsection of option two. The first one, again, is very simple. I don't agree with the projected increase, so what I basically did was level fund it, but I did increase the department revenues by $43,340. Subsequently, we went to the expense side and started making cuts. Number two is the salary and wages. I proposed to take out the 2% COLA. My calculations on that amount was $211,889. The Cape Cod Light Compact, I made a typographical error here in that I specifically put down the salary and wage account, but I find that it probably would be better if we just term that to say, take out of the funding source of general funds the $100,000. Because if you look at the breakdown, the county share of the Cape Cod Light Compact is $106,900. So I wanted to say, you know, let the Cape Cod Light Compact do their own cuts or where they see fit. Information and technology, you'll see the proposed and the amended amounts. The explanation says that the salary and wage account will be, the FY11s will be increased by $10,838 and reduce, that would reduce $60,189 from the proposed budget. And the contract services section, I propose to just level fund it with FY11's number, which indicates a total reduction of $107,829. Human services, contract services, proposed section was $250,382. My amended number would be $103,450. The explanation states that it's a $10,000 increase to the FY11 budget, and it's a reflection of $146,932. The wastewater initiative, contract services, the proposal number is $302,000. My amended number would be $127,000. I did not choose to fund the $100,000 study, and I also chose to reduce the amount which has been set aside for the proposed lawsuit from $100,000 to $25,000, and that reflects a $175,000 reduction. I think the general comments on the last page pretty much sums up my feelings on this. If in fact this option 2 was the way that the Assembly decided to go, I feel very confident in the fact that if in fact we are wrong and the increased revenues, projected revenues are coming in, that all these cuts could be looked at and addressed in ordinances. So just because we're cutting them here, it doesn't mean that I feel that they are dead. But I think that I'm trying to take the responsible kind of look at this and say, well, instead of saying we're going to get that kind of increase, I can't be convinced of it, but I'm also man enough to say, well, you know what, if they're right and we do get that increase, I would have no problem supporting putting some of this money back in through ordinances. Specifically, the $75,000 for the lawsuit, I think that that's something that could easily be taken out of the budget and be proposed to an ordinance, because let's face it, if we get sued, we're gonna transfer the money out of the reserved funds anyhow. And certainly when you go back to the human services aspect of it, many of the programs are extremely worthy programs, and I feel that would certainly fly if we have the money. An ordinance would certainly pass to, in fact, fund those programs. Briefly, if I just may continue, then I'll wrap up. I'm concerned in voting for the proposed budget as it's been presented with that projected increase in revenue, in that as the new fiscal year begins, there will be projects that will be funded and monies given out through grant processes, so that if in fact we are found in December having not met our projection of revenues, that those areas of, for lack of a better way of understanding it, recouping our money or cutting would have been lost. I mean, once we give a grant to someone, we can't ask for it back. And I feel that we are putting at risk basic services that we provide here, because that's where we would be looking to cut if, in fact, December comes and we're not making the revenues. The other option is in December to fund the shortfall out of reserve funds. And I think that that's basically the question you have to ask yourself here today. Because if you do vote the proposed budget in and we do not make the projected revenues, what's going to be our remedy? And I see two things. Again, making cuts to programs that we have not yet funded or services that we are providing, or funding it through the reserve fund. So I'm not going to actually legally make these motions, because I think that we should, I would like to, through you, Mr. Speaker, at least kick around both ideas and see where the rest of the assembly is at. Certainly, if no one wants to talk about it or everybody's pleased with the motion, then I have no problems with just going forward.
Mr. Speaker,
Can we talk? Yes, Spiro.
I want to thank the delegate from Harwich for putting together a very thoughtful presentation, an amendment to the proposed budget. I wanted to explain that I had planning to offer a similar amendment on the salaries and compensation side of the budget, and that if Leo's amendment were to be made as a motion, I would accede to it, because what you're looking at in front of you that I had proposed is very similar in its outcome. We both looked at, if I can speak for Leo, we both looked at the salaries and wages accounts, and in our own ways, we're able to pull out similar amounts of money, which would allow the budget to proceed in a somewhat more balanced fashion. So before I would make that kind of a motion, I'd like to hear the discussion on Leo's proposal.
Any comments on Leo's comments and so on? Are we a quiet, acquiescent bunch here? Yes, there's somebody I thought I could rely on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a question. As you know, there's a number of delegates, including me, that are experiencing the budget process for the first time this year. Having watched it in previous years on television, even folks with many years of experience get a little confused sometimes with what the options are, because it's different than what we're used to at town meeting. my question is option one actually a legal option? I thought we had to vote on a budget of some kind today.
Yeah, I'm not going to quote the exact, wording, but I think the charter suggests that the Assembly has to take action on the budget by, well, we've got it. Action by the Assembly of Delegates shall adopt a budget for the ensuing fiscal year no later than the first day of June in the preceding fiscal year. Now, whatever, we're going to adopt a budget today one way or another, so it may not be what the county commissioners like or what we like, but, so we fulfill that obligation. However, if the Assembly of Delegates has not taken final action with respect to any amount recommended in the proposed budget by said first day of June, such amount shall, with that any action by the Assembly of Delegates, become a part of the appropriations for the ensuing fiscal year. So the time frame is another thing, and I'm not going to get into that unless we have to, but we have an option of submitting whatever budget we want back to the county commissioners by June 1st. Yes, Julia.
Well, I don't think Leo's proposal is crazy. And I can understand, I think it's rational. I think your explanation was very rational. I would prefer that we not go that route, however, because my experience with Mark Zielinski's projections in the past has been good, and they have been accurate. And so to do such a very significant change, I'm reluctant to do that unless we're forced to do it. I do appreciate your point that if time goes along and we have to make changes, we won't have as many options. And I do think that is a good point. But I'm willing to take that risk at this time.
Okay.
So, and I think that it would be probably unwise for us to try to amend the budget to this extent without a nice solid 2/3 plus majority. So I think we need to keep that in our mind. Otherwise, the whole thing doesn't work out well in my experience, or at least is very fraught.
Okay, anyone else? I'd just like to say that I looked at some of the things that are listed in Leo's recommendations, and of course, a budget is a big document, and there's a lot of things in it, and I'm sure there's some that we could all pick out, here and there. And sitting in the speaker's chair, I'm sort of the process guy, and I know that the portions of the budget were parceled out to the various committees that looked at them. And from my understanding, the individual subcommittees did not pass their proportion of the budget to the Finance Committee, at least by a majority vote, without any changes. So, I mean, it's not there hasn't been to this point a big discussion except on Leo's main point about the anticipated revenues. And I'm not in a position to really challenge Mark's revenue projections. We can question them, but we can't really substitute our recommendations because, to tell you the truth, I haven't got a clue what our revenues are going to be. And so I have to leave it up to those who do. The only caution that I would put out is a suggestion that in the future, as revenues change, whether they go up or down, that we can have ordinances come to us to refund things, because unlike a town budget where you pretty much town meeting votes on it and there it is, and if worse comes to shove, push comes to shove, you might have to take a few grand out of stabilization. Our revenues are anticipated revenues, so if you go to that point where you're going to say, well, we'll go through the fiscal year, and as revenues come in, we'll sort of mess with the budget pro or con, I think that that's not the way a budget should be presented. I think we should have a budget passed, whatever it is, and pretty much stick to it unless something happens that's bad and has to be amended. So I'm not a fan of saying, well, next month we can look and see, maybe we'll throw a few dollars here, and the month after that, a few dollars there. I don't. Just for me personally, I'd rather not do that. So anyway.
I'd like to speak to this.
Sure.
I'm sensitive. I guess sensitive is the right word to what Ms. Taylor said about we need a solid two-thirds, and as probably the least effect on this process in the room, I'd like to comment on a couple of things. First of all, I think Leo has done an extremely creditable job at looking at the budget and looking at the issues that it presents. Second, I think it is foolhardy for us to approve a budget based on revenues that the projections really appear to be made out of some kind of a wishful thinking that property sales and transactions are going to increase to the point to generate this kind of revenue. I think that that's a mistake. And I think that what Leo has done is to address that in a way that inflicts the least harm. And I think his point that if we have to make cuts later, they're going to inflict far greater harm than the cuts he's proposing now, I think that's something that this body should consider, because I'm in favor of his option number 2 for precisely that reason. It allows us to create lesser pain than will be created later if we have to look at shortfalls in revenues covered either out of reserves or out of decreases in personnel and layoffs, which I think is certainly possible with the kind of shortfall we're looking at.
Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my experience dealing with 8 or 9 budgets now, they've all been different. The process has all been a little different. So for the new members, the process you've seen this time is different again from the past couple of years, and mainly in this way. And in the past, the committees were faulted the Finance Committee somewhat for not being open enough to their suggestions. That in some cases, the Finance Committee looked and made cuts that they themselves hadn't made any recommendation on. As a matter of fact, moved to pass the budget, and we thought there should be reductions. This year around, I think I have to credit the committees for at least raising each of the issues that I think that Leo has articulated and the gentleman from Yarmouth may articulate. We heard that there were concerns about that. Not enough concerns that the committee that was dealing with itself thought they wanted to take action on, but did kind of fire a warning shot across the bow that they were going to perhaps bring these before the full assembly. In my analysis of the numbers, I'm coming down on trusting the county that they've put together numbers that are going to work. But I think that we have heard, or they should have heard, that there are many members who have concerns about those or uneasy about them. If you accept them, then you're cutting the budget perhaps because you feel certain areas are overfunded or you'd like not to fund that particular item or request. But what I hope that the county commissioners are hearing, that since they proposed this budget without any one-time expenses, they weren't going into reserves, they were doing it off what they believed to be legitimate recurring revenues. I, for one, am saying that in answer to the summary question that the gentleman from Howard raised, I won't go into reserves to shore up the budget should their estimates fall short. I think what they're going to have to do is then the county commissioners will have to look at their budget and come back to us with cuts. So I think it's been a good process. I think the committees have been very open and very thorough in their examination of the budget, and I hope it passes.
Okay. Any further comment on this? Yes, Leo.
For the record, I know you have all been handed Spiro's copy too, and he mentioned earlier that we arrived at a similar number, and I just want you to, for the record, we did this separately. He did it. We didn't talk to each other, and I'm kind of proud of that, because if you look at that number, it's pretty close. Yeah. Even if it's wrong, it's pretty close. So, but please understand that he did it one way on his own, and I did it one way on my own. Okay. The only other thing I want to add is Yes. Yeah. Yep. I personally would not support just removing the COLA from the budget. And I only say this because I believe what we're doing is having a general discussion. No motion has been made yet, but I just want it on the table that I would not support just removing the 218 from the budget and removing the COLA increase. I have a problem that this budget reflects some new expenditures. And it goes back to my, again, concerns that if we do not make the projected revenue number, that those new expenditures will have already been expensed, and the burden of the cuts will be, again, as I said earlier, falling back on the services that we normally provide. Yeah. But just because we're kind of like letting everybody know where we're at, I would not just simply vote for a COLA reduction. That's it.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Carol.
I'm not going to make a motion at this time, so this goes as a matter of more discussion. I offered additional amendments as well, just for a quick explanation. Excuse me, I'm going to offer additional amendments for explanation. There seems to be 2 salary and compensation reserve accounts that are significant, quite substantial, in the amounts of $75,000 and $150,000, which total $225,000 in the budget, which may be an area that we might want to look at as an amendment. I think we heard in the subcommittee meeting just prior to this convening that cost of living adjustments are made in recognition of the monies that are in these salary reserve accounts. Be another way to foresee or forego, I suppose, the cost of living adjustments by taking away the reserve account for that purpose. And the third amendment really is, I think, hitting at the crux of the problem here. We have a budget that was presented to us that's 7% greater than it was last year, which includes approximately 2% increases in COLAs. It's built on a foundation of anticipated revenues that are dubious. At least many of us think that's the case. Inside the department that puts together the budget, they built an increase in that department. So the same group that proposes the budget proposed an increase in their own budget. The one group that's left in county government that is charged to oversee the budget saw a reduction in their budget. From my observation of this process, the first time around, we don't have the resources at our disposal to do this job effectively. Relying on 5 individual committee chairs, 15 assembly delegates, and our overtaxed clerk at the moment to figure out how to come up with a balanced budget. I think the commissioners abdicated that responsibility, and it falls to us. And my proposal, which is labeled number 3 here, would be to increase our budget sufficiently so that we could hire a budget director that could be at our disposal throughout the year, and not just during the budget process, to oversee a $25 million budget. So I'm going to let someone else have a turn before I make any one of those amendments.
Leo?
Can I just for the process? Sorry. Yeah. Just for the process here, and so we don't get too confused, I'm going to go ahead and strike my option 1. I feel there's absolutely no support for option 1. But because I did spend hours in front of the computer, I'm going to ask your indulgence to allow me to make option 2 as a motion. My motion is to amend the FY12 budget with the specific areas that have been laid out under option 2.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Okay, so now we are discussing the amendment to the main motion, which is the fiscal 2012 budget. Do we have any further discussion on this? Yes, John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the delegate from Harwich for his diligence in trying to amend the budget that he thinks that is so deficient on the revenue side. I can get into a lot of specifics. Specifically, two I'd like to just mention right now that I think have to be looked at is one is the human services numbers that you want to do. Those aren't really new programs. We're a new funding source, but these are ongoing programs. Then if you cut them from the budget and waited at sometime in the future uncertain, that program would be disbanded and not being able to come back together again. So I think you have to look at the whole time continuum of a project that's been going on that we are now asked to be funding because the grant money has run out from other sources. So that's one. Number two, with testimony from the county administrator and the finance director, Mark, he thinks the COLA number is closer to $55,000, and I'm sure that if we suspended the rules, he'd tell us exactly how he got to that. But the $218,000 is not an accurate number and does not reflect an accurate reduction in the budget as such. So those numbers have to be adjusted and thought through a little bit differently. Those are just two. Then, now getting back to the general comments on the budget, and I kind of concur with our delegate from Barnstable. You know, Mark's got a 16-year track record with me of being very conservative on the budgets and always coming through with those without going into reserves. And we, as a finance committee, were very specific with Mark to say that we would not allow an attack on reserves to cover the monthly budget shortfall. So it will be painful, but it's a pain that will be shared mostly by the executive side of this government, and hopefully not so at all. Like I said,
just as a point of order is that what John is saying is that it's his view that the Assembly probably will not support.
No, I think I said that the Finance Committee was very direct in letting him know that there would be great resistance to attacking the reserves on the budget, to fund the budget. That's specifically what I was going to say, and I'll stand by that. Thank you.
Speaker, in response to Mr. Oman's characterization of the reduction in the COLA, in the salaries account as a COLA reduction, I think that is Leo's terminology. I would prefer to look at it, which is why I was very specific in my draft, not to call it as such, as a reduction in the salaries account, without deference to it being for COLAs, step increases, raises, hires, fires, whatever it is. We have a budget that's $25 million. We have a payroll that's $12 million. If it's seriously out of whack, you got to take money out of payroll. You can't take it just out of all programs. So this is a simple, I would view this simply as a reduction in the salaries and wages accounts without characterizing it as a COLA reduction or a COLA not being given out.
Okay, right now I have the main motion. No, I have Leo's option 2 on the table. So is there any further comment on this? If not, we'll go for a vote. You want to take a roll call vote on this?
Certainly.
Well,
Ready?
start with the
Richard
ayes.
Anderson?
No.
Cheryl Andrews?
Yes.
Ron Bertram?
No.
Leo Kukunis?
Yes.
James Killian?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Leo, your vote again?
Yes.
Marcia King?
No.
Tom Lynch?
No.
Teresa Martin?
No.
Deborah McCutcheon?
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
Yes.
John Oman?
No.
Paul Pilcher?
No.
Anthony Scalise, not here. Julia Taylor?
No.
Okay, just to reiterate, because I'm using Excel tonight to try to expedite it, and it doesn't seem to be helping me. On the amendment that's on the floor,
Right.
I'll restate. Richard Anderson, you voted no. Cheryl Andrews, yes. Ron, no. Leo, yes. Chris Kanega's not here. James Killian, yes. Marcia King, no. Tom Lynch, no. Teresa Martin, no. Deborah McCutcheon, yes. Spiro, yes. John Oman, no. Paul Pilcher, no. Anthony Scalise is absent, and Julia Taylor, no. 28.56%.
Voted yes.
Yes. Fails.
It fails, but we
Thank
should
you very
we should
much
have
for your
both-
indulgence.
both- Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for your hard work, Leo. I mean, going through the budget line like that is something else. So we now are left with our main motion, which is the fiscal 2012 budget. I don't have the ordinance number 1102. Does anyone else have any comments on it?
Mr. Speaker, I'd
Yes.
like to offer an amendment to proposed ordinance 1112
Okay.
to reduce appropriations to the operation budget for fiscal year 2012 by $218,165,000 by reducing Category A, Group 1 expenditures for salaries and other compensations in the following departments in the document that you have before you, unless you want me to enumerate all those numbers.
No, that's right. I need a second on that. Second. That's it, been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? This is basically removing an amount by which is, I guess the salaries are adjusted upward. And
Just as a quick explanation, this is a 98% of the total proposed salaries and wages in the budget. It could be referred to as a 2% reduction, but as I don't want to sound redundant, I'd rather look at it as we need to balance this budget, whether it's by 200,000 or 750,000, we need to make some reductions before we send it back to the commissioners. This is my recommended reduction by 218,000.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may, through the chair, ask the gentleman from Yarmouth, these are numbers that we received just right before the start of this meeting, and they're fairly dry. They look very well thought out. I have no idea what they're doing, which departments. I can see what department, but what was your theoretical way of reducing the 2% from each of these 15 or so departments?
Rather than pick out individual departments for reduction, we just took every single department that has salaries and wages in it and reduced their salaries and wages account. By 2%, or by taking the proposed number that was in the budget, for example, in Department 100, $278,000, funding it at the 98% level, which is the $272,000, which would be $5,500 less than what was proposed.
When one thinks of cutting a budget, probably the easiest way to do it is, if you're discovering yourself in trouble, will be around salaries and wages. That tool is left to managers fairly late into the system. Now, it gets fairly draconian in that you'd have to do furloughs or layoffs or direct firings in order to balance your budget to live within your means. But out of all of the new proposals that were there, that were proposed, I think the salaries is the easiest tool that a manager has if he or she finds they're getting into trouble late into the budget. So I'm not going to support this. I think we could wait long in if they need to find that $275,000 through salaries.
Okay. Any other comment
Speaker,
on this?
This approach is in direct response to that kind of potential, which is the only tool that would be left to the managers, would be to lay off or furlough. If we were looking ahead and seeing that may be a possibility, preventing the budget from increasing in order to prevent people from being laid off is probably more humanitarian than giving them a raise and then laying some people off as a result. I believe generally in our municipalities are taking this approach.
Excuse me, Can we, perhaps
The
speak up?
towns that we represent have been taking this approach for the last 2 years. They're foregoing increases in salaries and wages specifically so they don't have to lay anybody off at the end of, somewhere in the middle of the fiscal year. This is one of those issues that drives taxpayers crazy. We end up at the end of a process of built-in COLAs of having fewer employees at higher salaries being less productive. And I'd rather not see the county go down the same road.
I should leave this one alone, but I'm not going to, as usual. You know, you got to understand what a cost of living allowance is. What it is, what its intention is to so someone doesn't lose ground. In other words, it's supposedly tied with the inflation rate. I had a discussion with Mark, and he told me what I probably know already, that, you know, there's a lot of numbers out there. There's some official cost of living increase that's determined by the federal government. We don't know what it is. But, you know, it's basically saying if you stay at the same salary level and costs go up, that you're basically going to be losing ground. So I don't see this as spending, you know, having higher and higher salaries. I think these people are just keeping up with inflation. And, you know, it's like telling an employee, well, I got good news and I got good news and bad news. First the bad news. You know, you're not going to get your COLA, and here's the good news: we're not going to lay you off. You know, so I mean, at some point, employees have to be respected. It's too easy to say. It's very easy to take it out of COLA, because if you cut a program, then you're not doing something, right? You say, well, we can't do this because it's too expensive. But if you cut somebody's salary, you just presume that they're going to grumble and go along with it anyway, so you don't lose anything by cutting a salary. So, hey, why not do it? But I have respect for the people who work for a living. You know, there are a lot of people out there, I know that times are tough, but there's a lot of people out there 4 or 5 years ago that were getting a lot more than in the private sector, that were doing a lot better than 2.5% a year. Some of them made 20 and 30% more than they had a few years before, and public employees don't get that option. They don't have a big year. You know, they don't go fishing and next thing they double their take. You know, they don't jack up their salaries as an electrician because they're in great demand. They basically tick along at 2.5% plus step raises, and that's what they get after 20 years and 25 years. So I'm not saying they're in a bad position, but I just think it's too tempting to do that, especially in a situation where it's not. There are other things we're doing that we weren't doing before. So anyway, that's my little pain to liberalism, and for what it's worth. Okay. All right, do we have anything else? John.
By coincidence, I'm sure, the Finance Committee met with our auditors. Every year, with the Assembly hires an auditing team to go and look over the other side, the commissioners and the executive branch of county government, to make sure that they're doing the best job that they can do. And this recently they recently came back to us today, actually, with their report on fiscal 2011 budget, and it was remarkably flattering to the county and to the taxpayers of Barnstable County. We have an average of 17.5% in reserve compared to our general budget. That's outstanding. A well-run municipality approaches 5%. We're at 17.5%. We have county assets exceed our liabilities by more than $20 million. That's an outstanding statistic. And sometimes you have to pay for good service. I don't want to see the COLAs attack this time. They're 2%. Most of our employees are at their top step, so they're not getting step raises. That 2% is exactly what they need to stay afloat in this very expensive peninsula that we live on, and I couldn't support anything that cuts that salary at that COLA at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further comment, I'll call for a motion. I'll call for a vote on. Oh, maybe there is further comment. Sorry, I forgot about you, Cheryl.
I was very close to biting my tongue because in the end, I think we all know where this is going. But politics being what it is, oftentimes people will, when all is said and done and the dust is settled, people will look back at a particular vote and decide for the world what they think that vote meant. And so if I don't speak, it lets some of the previous comments stand, such as I respect the employees. Well, the implication is that if someone voted with this amendment, they didn't respect the employees, which is rather offensive. I've worked with public employees for about 20 years, And I know the ups and downs of this issue better than most. I had to do 9 budgets as a selectman in Provincetown, and the scenario presented by the delegate from Yarmouth is exactly what's happening. That because of various built-in situations that we couldn't do anything about, we've had to reduce the staff, and actually we went to a 4-day week in Provincetown in order to manage to pay the staff at the rate they felt they deserved, but not pull it off in an hourly way. Well, what happened? Well, the town had a fit, and now they want to go back to a 5-day week. Reality is this is not about respecting people. This is about balancing a budget. I give a lot of credit to the delegate from Harwich for doing all the hard work that I didn't want to do, and same for the delegate from Yarmouth. I recognize that we don't even come close to a two-thirds weighted vote on this issue, so it's more about at least letting our colleagues know how we feel about it. And if I take any vote, I guess I just want to make it very clear that it has little to do with respecting employees or the amount of money they make, but more about the fact that I heard pretty much every member of the Finance Committee and many members of the Assembly say exactly the same thing during this budget process, which was a general discomfiture with the revenue side of this budget. I heard everybody say it, or at least everybody on the Finance Committee. And in that vein, I was very curious to see what kind of amendments would come in front of this group. Interestingly enough, we all kind of giggled at the thought of hiring a budget director, and yet as soon as anyone makes an amendment to the budget, we're told, well, we really don't know what we're doing because these numbers are wrong, and we need staff to do it for us. So as a newbie, I'll say it's been fascinating, and as I said, I think we're clear where this budget's going. But I want to, as one delegate, congratulate the folks that attempted to do something here and say that whether I vote up or down on any particular amendment to reduce this budget, I hope nobody takes it out of the context of really the general discussion, which clearly has a lot of validity. Thank you.
Okay. Further comment? If not, we will now vote on the amendment by the delegate from Yarmouth.
Richard Anderson?
No.
Cheryl Andrews?
Yes?
Ron Bertram?
No.
Leo Kukunis?
No.
James Killian?
Yes.
Marcia King?
No.
Tom Lynch?
No.
Teresa Martin?
No.
Deborah McCutcheon?
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
Yes.
John Ullman?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
John Ullman?
No. I was saying yes, ma'am.
Sounds like a politician to me.
Is Kathy here?
Paul Pilcher?
No.
Julia Taylor?
No.
I'll restate.
For a minute
I'll
there.
restate. Richard Anderson, no. Cheryl Andrews, yes. Ron Bertram, no. Leo Kukunis, no. James Killian, yes. Marcia King, no. Tom Lynch, no. Teresa Martin, no. Deborah McCutcheon, yes. Spiro Mitrakostas, yes. John Ullman, no. Paul Pilcher, no. Anthony Scalise, no. Julia Taylor, no. Oh, sorry, he's absent. 22.
But he would have voted.
22.89%.
All right, it said, yeah, it
That
failed.
say yes, but fails.
Okay. All right, well, in that case, are there any other comments now? We're back to the main motion, which is the 2012 budget.
Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, I'd like to offer an amendment to proposed ordinance 11-2 to reduce the appropriations to the operating budget for fiscal year 2012 by $225,000 by reducing Category A Group 1 expenditures in the following amounts. Department 500, in the salary reserves of the following departments: Department 500, $75,000; Department 930, $150,000 for the sum of $225,000.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All right, do we know what these amounts were for?
Best as we can discern without a budget director, these These are amounts that have been set aside in case these departments require additional monies on top of the salaries and wages that they've been appropriated in their regular accounts. I think I heard the budget director or the county administrator say earlier that they take a look at this number, since it's being appropriated but not expended, as one of the factors in deciding how to proceed with salary increases in the next fiscal year. So I think that since we're playing with money we really don't have in the revenues, that we should probably forego putting money that we probably won't spend in the budget.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment on that? Marcia?
My concern is Department 500 is the Cape Cod Commission. We don't use any county funds for the Cape Cod Commission. That's their money. I'm not sure, I'm not sure who to defer to. I don't think you can do the 75. The 150 for Department 930, I actually might consider voting with you on that, but I can't do it because I think that we cannot do the 75 on Department 500. So I guess I would look to the speaker, and I'm not sure we could waive the rules and have maybe Mark or even one of the commissioners address
Well,
that
if you want to make a motion to waive the rules, you can do that.
I make a motion to waive the rules to allow either the commissioners or Mark to answer that question.
I would object to waiving the rules.
You would object to it?
I think we can wade through this
Well, I mean, you can't
without...
object to it. She made a motion. You can
I
vote
understand.
against it, but...
No, I agree, but one of the procedure...
You can object to it, but it won't do any good.
One of the procedural rights that all the delegates have is to object to the motion.
There's a motion that's been moved and seconded, okay? All those in favor of waiving the rules to talk to Mark, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so, Mark.
Oh, lucky me. You want this, Mark? No, I think I know what Mr. Tappan was talking about. I believe...
No, would you turn your mic on, Mark?
There you go. How about that? Those are the two reserve accounts, one in the Cape Cod Commission because the money comes out of the Cape Cod Commission Fund, and one in the general fund, and I believe 930 is the miscellaneous and contingency section of the budget. And those are the reserve accounts, and those are the funding sources that we would use to fund the COLA. The two salary reserve accounts that we set up to fund the COLA.
My question is, I understand that. My question is Department 500 is the Cape Cod Commission.
Correct.
What we're asking, what this motion is to delete $75,000 from their budget and do we have the authority to do that?
You certainly do, but it doesn't free up general fund money. It would free up Cape Cod Commission fund money.
Okay. Julia?
So am I right in thinking, Mark, that if we wanted to reduce the COLA, this is it?
This is, you got it.
This is the COLA money. This
That's
is
right.
not some extra money that might get spent.
That's correct.
It is the COLA money,
That's correct.
right? So the 218 is some other figure that Spiro had. So if we don't want to just cut the COLA, we can't really vote this.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes. Tom?
In light of other testimony where we heard the COLA could be $55,000 or $218,000, we have $225,000 before us. Do you need 55 to fund the COLA?
The way I do the COLA, and maybe this will help explain it, is at the end of the year, I settle up all of the salary accounts. And because we have some, vacancy rates and sometimes and those types of things, then I use the funds in the salary reserve to cover any issues I have in any of the salary accounts. That usually at the end of the year nets out to be about $55,000 or so whenever we do a COLA of that nature. That's why I came up with that number.
What the number is, what Tom's asking is the number is 250,000.
That's how much we budgeted to cover the COLA, exactly. 75 in the commission, and that's out of the commission fund, and 150 out of the general fund.
So, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that this 225 is what you estimate the COLA
Correct, that's right.
will be
Exactly.
plus a cushion.
Plus a cushion,
and
exactly.
A reserve. But it isn't a separate reserve from the
It's not a separate reserve, that's what we use to fund the COLA.
Okay. Marcia, did you have a question on that? Okay, so, all right, well, it's motion on the floor, it's been moved and seconded, I guess we'll take a vote.
Richard Anderson? Cheryl Andrews?
Yes.
Ron Bertram?
No.
Leo Kukunis?
No.
James Killian?
Yes.
Marcia King?
I'm abstaining. Yeah, you're right. I'm so angry right now. I can't believe you just said that, so I know I can't vote.
Tom Lynch?
No.
Teresa Martin?
No.
Deborah McCutcheon?
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
Yes.
John Omen?
No.
You sure?
Paul Pilcher?
No.
Julia Taylor?
No.
$22.89%. Yes.
Okay, we are back once again to...
Microphone, please.
Once again to ordinance 11-02. Any comment on the main motion, which is the budget? Hearing none, I will call...
Mr. Speaker, can I?
Okay. You have to answer when I ask you.
Yeah,
Okay.
take it easy. A point of order, the total vote in the last, for the last amendment was what? 22?
Marcia.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer an amendment to the ordinance 11-2 to increase the appropriation to the operating budget Barnstable County fiscal year 212 by adding $50,000 to Department 130, the Assembly of Delegates, in the Category A Group 1 expenditures for salaries and compensation account to hire a budget director.
Okay. But just a point of order. If I ask if there are any other comments and I don't hear it and I go on to the next, I'm not going to recognize anyone after this. So you're going to have to take your opportunity when you get it. Okay. Now, there's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Okay, moved and seconded.
Speaker,
Any discussion, yes? Spiro?
I think again, I don't want to sound redundant. I think what we have witnessed in the last few minutes is justification for this body requiring additional staff to be able to do its job properly. We receive budgets late. We receive them out of balance. We rely on commission staff, the commissioner's staff, to justify the numbers that the commissioners are putting before us. I would much prefer to have some assistance on this side of the table to allow us to perform our oversight responsibilities better.
Okay, excuse me, Leo?
I just want to say on the onset here, I want to thank our delegate from Yarmouth for producing these amendments in writing. I asked 2 weeks ago that if anyone wanted to do this procedure, that they would respectfully bring them in writing, and I think we all can agree it makes the process a lot easier. I sat here a few years back where people were saying things and we were trying to jot them down, and I really appreciate him taking the time doing this. On this specific amendment, I will have to say that I can't support it. I don't support it because basically it increases the budget by $50,000, number one, and as you all know, I have a problem with the budget as it is. So to do this, that's not to say that I don't want to hear more and listen more about the idea of this budget director. On the surface, I don't agree with it. I think that's what the function of the Finance Committee is. We are elected officials. We all come here to do due diligence. Some of us have a knack for certain things. Some of us enjoy the finance part of it, and that's why we get on the Finance Committee. And quite frankly, I think they do a good job. And I happen to be on there. This is my first year. on the Finance Committee, and I think that due diligence falls on that committee to be the finance director. If he wanted to amend this and say, add $50,000 and divide it up amongst the Finance Committee members, I might consider voting for it. But, no, actually, I wouldn't even support it then, because, again, it increases, it goes back to the fundamental point that it increases the budget that I already believe is already overexpended, and I wouldn't support any additional expenditures to it. But
Any other comment on this amendment? Hearing none, we will now take a vote.
Earning my pay tonight.
We'll change this system, make it easier for you. Okay.
Richard Anderson?
No.
Cheryl Andrews?
No.
Ron Bergstrom?
No.
Leo Kukunis?
No.
James Killian?
No.
Marcia King?
No.
Tom Lynch?
No.
Teresa Martin?
No.
Deborah McCutcheon? Spiro Mitrakostas?
Yes.
John Oman?
No.
Paul Pilcher?
No.
Julia Taylor?
No.
11.02%.
Did you get everybody?
Oh, yeah, there are a couple absent.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When you read the numbers, could you read the yeses and then tell us what the noes are, or just tell us all the percentages? I mean, it's a little confusing when you say 24.2. I don't know what that really necessarily means, and I guess I'd like to hear, was it?
Okay, 11.02% voted yes on that amendment, and 88.98 voted no.
mind saying that?
Well, it wouldn't be 88.98 because we haven't got 100%, so. Yeah, see, I think the previous method of just simply writing the checks in, because normally we would wait until it was calculated, and you just do the yeses and the nos, but.
Hold on. And you abstained.
I did.
80.77.
Okay.
80.77.
Okay.
On the nay.
80.77 nay, 11.02 yes. We're now back to the main motion. Do we have any further comment on the main motion, which is the budget? Hearing none, we will take a vote on the main motion, ordinance 11-02.
Richard Anderson?
I'm sorry, I was...
You're voting on the budget, Richard. The most important vote you'll take all year.
And he's not here. Yes.
Cheryl Andrews?
No.
Ron Bergstrom?
Yes.
Leo Kukunis?
No.
Who is this out? James Killian?
No.
Marcia King?
Yes.
Tom Lynch?
Yes.
Teresa Martin?
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon?
No.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
No.
John Oman?
Yes.
Paul Pilcher?
Yes.
Julia Taylor?
Yes.
.16% voting yes, 35.84 no.
Okay. No.
64.16. Sorry. Yeah.
Is that person get counted in the yeses or in the noes?
Yep, you're right. He's absent. And he is absent.
The clerk cannot anticipate how absent members will vote.
I'll second that motion.
64.16% yes, 28.56% no.
Okay, the motion passes. We have a budget.
Thank you very much.
And next year, the commissioners will provide us with the budget on time, according to the charter, yes. I can't recognize you, sorry.
Jan, we have the numbers again?
64.16%
Voting
yes, 28.56% no.
Okay. Okay.
This is a gray area right there.
We now move on to reports from committees. John, did you want to give a report on the auditor committee? Or
Thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Speaker. I would. Actually, I have probably got 2 reports.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we still have business to conduct.
Okay. Today, the Finance Committee met in a public hearing on proposed ordinance 1105. Essentially, it was an appropriation from the 2011 reserves to fund 2 pieces of equipment, two forms of equipment for IT, totaling $20,500, and to add to the fuel, add money to the fuel accounts in about at $18,000 because of the tremendous rise in fuel costs countywide on heating oil. And after due diligence, the budget, the public hearing carried 4-0. We recommend that to the full assembly for a vote for a total of $38,500 being taken from reserves for those 2 reasons.
All set?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
as I previously stated in the general part of the meeting, we met with the auditors today, and I won't reiterate the specifics unless you really need them, but I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It's a long-term, Sullivan and Rogers, a very long-term auditing company that comes before us, and we pay for that audit, and they do that in due diligence to make sure that the executive side is doing their job well. And without giving too much praise to the county, they seldom run into an organization that's this well-run municipal-wise, and for various and sundry reasons. We have tremendous reserves in comparison to our general budget. We have tremendous checks and balances to make sure that our organizational monetary functions run smoothly and have proper checks and balances. They found some very few things. One of the things that they found that they had some issues with is the separation of the new rebate program through the Cape Light Compact. They wanted to actually have a different account set up for that, as opposed to just a different section of an account put up then. But these were very minor things in comparison. He gave us just a tremendous pat on the back for the way county government has been operating. We really appreciated that, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Okay. Any other reports from committees? Okay. Report from the clerk.
On your agenda this evening, you see that there are minutes and reports that we need to hear from the various committees with regards to acceptance. It's the only item I have.
Who's the chair of Natural Resources? Are they
Julia.
gone?
She's gone.
We got a quorum?
I think she was left, she stepped out.
Okay.
Health and Human Services. Chris. and
Gone.
he's not here. Economic Affairs. And he's gone. Public Services.
I'm here. So all I gotta do is just make a motion, have someone make a motion to approve the minutes.
Excuse me, you need a quorum first, right, of the committee?
Have a quorum.
Could we?
Committee, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Great.
So So I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes. All right.
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Okay, 4-7. Thank you.
We have the Standing Committee on Finance. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. 4-0. Thank you.
And lastly, we have governmental regulations.
No, just going, if I could go back to finance for a minute. We had 2 reports in 2 minutes. Was that a motion to accept both the reports and the minutes?
That was. Thank you for clarifying that.
All right, I'll need a motion to approve the minutes of the Government Regulations Committee. Reports, yeah, because we...
So moved.
Okay. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's 3. This is the government regs.
No, I'm trying to get other business before he closes the meeting.
Oh, no, we're not going to close the meeting.
And I guess what I'll do is I'll
So
bring
do I.
back Natural Resources, Health and Human Services, and Economic Affairs next time we meet.
Okay.
To get those. And we'll probably have a couple from Finance again on June 1st, reflecting today's meetings.
Now, that finishes the report from the clerk?
Yes, it is.
Okay, other business. First, I'm going to recognize Marcia. Marcia.
Sorry, Deborah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I'm going to do today is submit an ordinance 1106 for overnights of hospitality for $12,500 and elder services, $25,000 for Meals on Wheels. I'm submitting it to use statutory reserves from 2011 because I can't use them for 2012. By the time I assume this comes forward to the Assembly, it will be close to that anyways, for a total of $37,500. Thank you.
Okay. We'll put that on the schedule, probably as soon as possible. Okay, now,
I have other business.
yes.
Maybe maybe I missed the memo. Please turn on your microphone. Maybe I missed the memo, but did we ever get a copy of the Rauschenberg O'Leary charge to the committee?
No.
Well, then I move that we ask our speaker, I move that we ask our clerk to send a letter to the powers that be and request that they provide it forthwith. And if you have to, under the public records law, because we should have had this a long time ago. So I have a motion, is there?
Yeah, I asked them 2 weeks ago, and they've not complied.
I'll second that motion.
Yep, okay. All those, you want to?
I as well did ask, I also did ask the county administrator, and I was informed that it had not been completed yet. It wasn't done, so.
Well, Bill was mistaken then, because he claimed that O'Leary should already have possessed it.
Mark said that it
Smoke
wasn't
and
done,
mirrors.
so he said.
I think we should put it in writing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Use your microphones.
I agree. So we'll take a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there any other business to be brought?
Mr. Speaker?
Leo, sure.
That summer's here again, and I just want to remind you that June 27th this year is a Saturday. Last Saturday in June is my farm open house, and you guys are all cordially invited. 10 in the morning, runs well into the evening. It's a family affair, and bring a dish. So please try to make it. It's a good fun time. It's the last Saturday in June.
Is that a dish to fill up with or actually to share?
I barely recovered from the last one.
Are you the head of the IMF?
Spiro?
A request, Mr. Speaker, of the Finance Committee. I happened to be here for the 3 o'clock meeting with the auditors. It was very informative. I think it would probably benefit every delegate to have heard the report from the auditors directly, and because they were being made available to the committee, I'm sure they could be made available to us to answer any questions we may have. So rather than do it again, I think going forward, if you guys wouldn't mind, shouldn't we be scheduling the auditors to be reporting directly to the Assembly? Well, it only took 20 minutes.
Did they file a report, a physical paper report?
We did take minutes of that, and I'm sure that our esteemed...
Because I have copies of that.
Yes. I think that we can get that to the Assembly, and we can bring it up at a future Assembly if anybody has questions on what the auditors had to say directly. I think that could be a future discussion I'd be happy to entertain.
We'll see what we can do.
But if Janice could produce those minutes and send them to every member of the Assembly, I think that would be a good option for us to know what the auditors say, especially since it's so flattering.
Okay. Tom?
I tend to agree with Spiro. It wasn't a long presentation. It was very thorough. It was very direct. I don't think the auditor would mind presenting it to the full Assembly, and I think would benefit all. So in the future, I think that'd be a fine suggestion.
Good. Okay. Any other business to be brought before the Assembly? Anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was awake, I was just waiting to see if